So I'm going to show you a dance move right now. You're going to get up and do it.
No.
All right?
No.
Oh, come on. Stand up. Come on. Come on.
But what do people see? I'm not dressed for this. I have shorts on. Look.
That's okay. It's okay. Just go like this. Just bend, put your head on the top there, okay? So basically, you're just moving your knees, right?
All right.
And then it's a TikTok video. You can do this. Put your hand around your head like that.
But my hair is so bad.
Go like this. Let me see this one. All right, get your fist in the screen.
All right, my fists are in the screen.
That's it.
It looks like I'm about to fight somebody.
And that too. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. That's it. You're ready. You're ready for TikTok.
Time to sing. Don't eat chickens. Don't eat eggs. Don't eat anyone who has wings, fins, or legs. Don't eat cows or cats or dogs or pigs. Eat lentils, beans, broccoli, potatoes, carrots, and figs.
Hello, everybody. I am Miss KADIE, That Vegan Teacher, and we are here today with an amazing person that I have admired for many years. His name is Wayne Shum. Wayne, would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
I'm an attorney. I'm an animal rights activist, and I've rescued, and at this point, it's a few hundred animals from factory farms, labs, fur farms, and other abusive facilities. And I just got out of jail for a rescue we did in Sonoma County, California, back in May of 2018. It's out of the frying pan into the fire. So I just got out of jail for a big mass open rescue that we organized in May 2018, where we removed 37 dying hens from a huge Whole Foods factory farm. And we could talk about that case. It was a pretty wild case, and we have some pretty powerful opportunities to appeal and establish some very important legal principles for animal rights. But the next case is probably the one that has the greatest potential to blow up in the mainstream and the public at large. Because, there's a vegan community, there's a people, because it's about dogs. And because it's about an issue that most people don't feel as much cognitive dissonance avoidance about. It's experimentation. The legal principles are the same. So we're fighting for the notion that animals are not just things, they are legal persons, which has huge implications beyond just one case. But because it's a case that involves the abuse of animals in a lab, most people don't feel personally guilty about it. And so we'll have a tremendous opportunity to defend the right that whether it's a dog, a cat, a pig, a chicken, a fish, or even an insect, animals are sentient beings who should not be thrown away and used like garbage.
Okay. It's interesting you talk about that the feelings that people have of guilt. Do you want to talk about that a bit? Because it is strange how if something's happening to a pig and they're eating pigs, that they're much less likely to see that pig as a sentient being.
Yeah, I know this very well myself, because one of the reasons I became an animal rights activist is when I was 8 years old in China, I had a horribly traumatic experience involving animal slaughter. Although in this case, it was not a pig, cow, or chicken, the animals we eat here in the United States. It was a dog. So the first time my family went back to our homeland of China, we went to this restaurant called the Wild Earth Restaurant. And everyone's heard about the wet markets of China because of COVID-19, but they're actually just restaurants too that have, outside of the wet markets, that have cages of all sorts of animals. And you saw raccoons, monkeys. My dad, who was a vivisector, was horrified by some of the cruelty he saw. And he was used to seeing animals suffering because he worked at a lab. And I remember him telling me there were these monkeys with kind of collars around their necks. And he told me, and he's told me for years, it was just so cruel, I couldn't believe it. But the thing that traumatized me was the fact that there were dogs being killed. And there was a dog that looked exactly like my dog. And I fell on the ground, grabbed my dad's knees, and begged him to help the dogs. I said, we got to do something. And I said this before, but I'll remember this until the day that I die. But my dad's response was, son, there's nothing we can do. This is just what they're taught here. And it's an odd thing that I am now, according to the US government, a criminal, because throughout my entire life in our upbringing, I was always someone who followed the rules. And it was the first time in my life that I realized some of the things we're taught aren't true, because no one could tell me that it was okay to kill a dog to eat them. So I had guilt for 30 years since then. And in many ways, the rescue of dogs had happened in Dane County, Wisconsin in April 2017, and the rescue the year prior in Yulin, China in April 2016 were a redemption for me to go back to this childhood memory where I left these dogs to die.
Is there anything in particular with the coming up trial that you would like people to do to, you want to give an address of where they can tune in or write to? I know you have a blog. Do you want to promote that where there'll be updates, I guess?
Yeah, so my new platform is called simpleheart.org. I'm most known for founding an animal rights network called Direct Action Everywhere, which is an amazing group of people. But
yeah, I've supported you guys for years.
You have, and I really appreciate that. It's so important for us to be unified in support of the animals and in support of veganism. But my new platform is called Simple Heart, and you can just go to simpleheart.org and follow the trial. But on March 18th, the first day of the trial, we're going to try and blow this up and talk about the fact that, you know, these are the most innocent animals on the face of planet Earth. They literally choose beagles for experiments because they're so trusting and gentle. You can torture them and abuse them for years, and they will never fight back. That is precisely why they chose not just dogs, but this specific subspecies, this particular breed of dog. And I blogged about this a couple weeks ago with a blog called "Why Do We Torture the Animals We Love Most?" But it goes back to the Cold War and the atomic bomb, that we were trying to figure out what radiation was doing to living beings. And they tried to perform radiation experiments on all sorts of other animals, and they just wouldn't tolerate it. They'd give up and die, or they'd fight back because they wouldn't tolerate months after months of radiation and abuse. I mean, who would want to be radiated? If somebody dragged you into a lab to face atomic radiation every single day, you would eventually fight back, or you just give up and die, right? But these dogs had so much hope and trust in their human caretakers that every day they're dragged to the lab, they're radiated with radiation that literally was causing, some of these dogs had dozens of bone fractures by the time the experiment was over.
Wow.
Years of radiation and abuse.
Are we worried that if we bring this up to the audience and people in general in society, that they will then say, okay, fine, we won't do this to the dogs, but we'll do this to, and then they pick another species?
So
Like,
this is the genius of legal principles. If we can establish a legal principle in court in Dane County, Wisconsin, that animals are not property, but persons, that has massive impacts, not just for the particular case. This is the nature of the American common law, that it has implications beyond the case to all other similarly situated parties. And right now, dogs, pigs, and chickens are in the same class. They are things, they're commodities, much as women and people of color were once things. So we can establish a legal principle that an animal is a person. For example, that means under the American Constitution, the Bill of Rights has a line that says, no person may be deprived of their life or liberty without due process of law.
But
that personhood requirement would suddenly extend to dogs, cats, pigs, and cows too, if we could establish it in court.
I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but, you know, people are immediately going to go to the dictionary and just go, okay, let me look at the dictionary of person. No, dog's not a person. And then what do you do? How do you establish this identity of personhood?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And honestly, the guy who's done the best work on this is someone by the name of Steve Wise at the Non-Human Rights Project. You may have heard of Happy the Elephant. They fought in New York State Court to try and establish personhood for an elephant. And they got pretty close. There's some amazing... Yeah, read the opinion by Judge Fahey. It's amazing. Even though they lost, Judge Fahey in the New York Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in New York, which is the second most important state in the nation after California, basically said, okay, we're not going to let you establish personhood this time, but frankly, you're probably morally right, even though I'm not willing to do this because this changes everything, and I'm a little scared by how much this changes. But as a moral and scientific matter, you're right.
It's such a cop-out. You know, I find this so frustrating, even just with the type of activism that I do. I often try to go to you know, people who are very famous, different stars who have such a big influence, the big ability to just affect millions and millions of lives. And it's so hard. You're so frustrated because like you said, if this judge would have just had the guts to do this, it would have made such a huge difference. Yeah. So fingers crossed.
As a lawyer for almost 20 years now, I could tell you one thing that lawyers and judges are not known for is courage. That's where you come in and people in your audience, because the people who are courageous and the people who push the lawyers and judges are usually activists. And while I'm a lawyer, the lawyer side of me is the rule following, kind of cowardly side of me. And the side of me that wants to get out there and make some change is the side of me that's an activist. And that's where you come in. So keep it up. And your audience is a huge part of this movement.
Well, we're here we're behind you. We stand with you. If anything, like I said before, I said off camera, you know, I'm here to help you. If there's any way that you want me to get a message out, if you have little things to do, I mean, I'll do my best, you know. And I talk about this thing called pods, and I think it's really important that we together as activists work in pods. I've said this many times before. The idea of pods is that we devote a certain amount of time to each other. It could be like a pod could be about 4 people in a group, something that's completely doable and measurable and sustainable. And that is, you know, let's say I'm working in a pod with you or somebody else, it would be like 3 minutes a day. That's all. I'll do whatever you want, whether it's to, you know, send out a press releases, make a video for TikTok or YouTube. I mean, it's really not that much time. Or write some comments in, you know, share your blog, promote your blog, whatever it is, you know, or call to action like, oh my God, this thing's happened. Katie, we got to tell everybody, you know, yes, sir, I'm doing it. Of course, it can be more time than that, but it's a minimum of 3 minutes a day. It's a way to kind of hold each other accountable. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I got to go and do this thing for this person. And then, you know, you're checking in on each other and mentoring and giving feedback, good, honest, constructive criticism too sometimes. So.
Yeah, it's a great idea that's backed by social scientific research, because the idea of micro networks, there's a really wonderful book by Damon Santolo about fishnet networks. And let's refer to fishnets as nets to save fish, not we're going to save them from the fisheries and release them into the oceans. But it does have one great weakness, because if you ever ask me to do something on TikTok, the animal rights movement will end, because I am embarrassingly bad singer and dancer. And I know that's what you do on TikTok. So
you don't have to, not at all.
You might not
there
even
are
know
dogs
to damage the animal rights movement, but you will damage the animal rights movement if you ask me to dance.
I do not believe that for 1 second. First of all, it would be hilarious.
You haven't seen me dance. You don't know yet.
Well, listen,
we can't allow this to happen. We cannot allow this to happen, or it will literally end the animal rights movement.
First of all, I have a whole bank of songs. You just literally press on the sound and then you just like do a dance. Like, you know, TikTok should be vegan. That's one of my songs. Like, why not support that concept?
Hashtag TikTok should be vegan. Only vegan foods allowed on screen. TikTok should be vegan. No more animals being cooked on screen. TikTok, please don't be mean.
See that thing you just did, that little circle thing that was really cool? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was awesome. If I did that, everyone would be so ashamed of vegans that they would give up veganism. Like, your entire audience would leave veganism if I did even what you just did. So God forbid anyone ever asked me to do it. You would have to torture me to get me to dance on TikTok, because it will end the animal rights movement.
Okay, well, Wayne, listen up, all right? You told me that we have a certain amount of time, right? So I'm going to show you a dance move right now. You're going to get up and do it, all right?
No.
Oh, come on, stand up, come on.
TikTok should be vegan.
But people see, I'm not dressed for this. I have shorts on, look.
That's okay, it's okay. Just go like this. Just bend, put your head on the top there, okay? Basically, you're just moving your knees, right?
Hashtag.
All right.
And then once it's a TikTok video, you just put your hand around your head like that.
But
my hair is so bad.
Go like this.
Let
me see this one. All right, get your fist in the screen.
All right, I'm just staring at the screen.
That's it. That's
it looks like
you know?
I'm about to fight somebody.
And that too, yeah, you can. Right?
You
all
gotta
right,
this.
that's it. You're ready. You're ready for TikTok. You're ready for TikTok.
I don't think so. I think this should never be published for the benefit of the animals. I think you should make sure this is sequestered into some secret archive. Maybe burned. Maybe you should just burn everything. But
burn the whole. I'll take the whole computer and throw it out the window.
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good for the animals. For the animals.
Sick of the animals. Yeah. So, Wayne, do you want to listen? Just to get back to a serious note. We were really like, I was just so upset when you went to jail. I was freaking out. I was like, I was putting messages in different videos and just so upset. I knew that mentally we're going to be okay, because I know you meditate, and I know you do some fasting and things like that. And I thought he's going to be okay, and you get it that you're doing something good in there. And I knew you would make friends with, or have stories to tell. I mean, it's an adventure of a lifetime. I knew you would think of it as almost like a roller coaster, like, oh, here we go. You embrace it the best that you could, but I know it was not easy. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the trial, and because I know that I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about how you actually feel, but I know that you are separated from your friends, which is horrific. And my heart goes out to you for that. And do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, what kind of horrific, gruesome punishment is that you cannot talk to your best friends for 2 years?
Yeah, the judge in the case, who was not fond of me, after I was released from jail, added a term of my post-release conditions of probation that prohibited me from coming within 100 yards of 14 people among which are certainly the two closest friends I have in the world, and many other people I'm extremely close with. And the idea behind this is that we're a criminal syndicate, kind of like a gang. And so we have to break up the gang. I mean, the deep irony behind this is I had actually left leadership in direct action everywhere, and I'm not organizing the large protests that I used to organize back in 2018 and 2019 before I left leadership. Still very supportive, still write about them, make videos about them, but I'm not involved in them. So it's mostly just a personal cost that I'm bearing. And thank God, I don't think the animals are going to be hurt that much, because the new team at DXC, Almira Tanner, Cassie King, Paul Pickles, I mean, they're all just amazing people. But yeah, it's been pretty hard. Yeah, even my dog, my dog is co-parented by my ex, Priya Sahani. And, I love her dearly. She's my best friend in the world. And I haven't talked to her since I was released from jail because of this term that was imposed on November 30th. And, the interesting thing about it, though, is it just reminds me, and I blogged about this. I wrote a blog called The Primordial Bond about how one of the most devastating consequences of factory farming and the institutionalized exploitation of animals is not even the direct violence they experience. And that's awful and cruel and evil. And spend 15 seconds or even half a second in a slaughterhouse, and you will see why all of us have decided we're not going to be a part of this. But even before the animals face direct violence, they face years of separation and loneliness. And that's one of the most cruel things about a factory farm. When you have a mother pig that's used to living in these big groups, extremely curious, gregarious animals who have friends and families, who love their children, who love their mothers. And this animal is forced to live in a 2-foot by 7-foot metal tomb for 5 years. And every day, every single moment in those 5 years, she wants to be around someone who loves her, just like us. Just like a little dog. If you've ever come home, do you have dogs and cats?
I do. I have a dog too.
Yeah. So, I mean, we all know this if we have dogs, how much they want our love. And this is something the animals are always denied. And it's a form of violence. It's unacknowledged. Or I shouldn't say unacknowledged, under-acknowledged within the animal rights movement. In many ways, it's the greatest cause of suffering, because the greatest suffering in the world is the denial of the ones we love most. And that's the thing that's taken from these animals from the day they're born.
Yeah.
Sorry, it got really dark really quickly. But
yeah, well, the truth is that I get upset. Like I pretty much cry every day about the animals. Like literally, I open up. I'm not toughened to it at all. Like I open up Instagram and I have to see what's going on. So I'm watching, and like the day that you were like in jail, I was just like I got so enraged and so sad, because it's just so difficult. It really feels like we just keep like, I don't know if you heard the poem there, but you feel like you just keep rescuing drowning animals, and then everyone around you just keeps throwing them back into the water. It's just like so hard. And I've noticed something over the last few years that was really shocking as a school teacher. I was amazed to see what's going on with kids today, young people, like using the word like forcing, like we are forcing them to be vegan, like this crazy thing. At first I thought, okay, it's just a joke. I don't know if it's video games. I don't know what has happened to society, but I feel like people have gotten like more ignorant. I'm not forcing, I'm talking on my own social media platform. No one's forcing you to do anything. And this idea that plants feel pain goes around, like people actually believe, like they actually believe that. You're trying to tell them, well, there's scientific, they're like, look it up. You don't have your facts. I mean, it's just, we're really, really starting at the bottom, and this seeing people wearing fur again all over it. Like, what is going on? I don't know how I know that you as a leader, you kind of always have to stay positive and, look at the bright side, but it's hard. It must not be easy for you as well.
Yeah, there's something weird happening among young people. And I blogged about this a little bit, but there's almost a performative vulnerability. And the good thing about this is vulnerability has almost become a source of power, especially on the left, that if you are in a vulnerable class, person of color, LGBTQ, women, whatever it is, then you get more status and power.
Somebody with autism or an eating disorder or anything. Tourette's, anything.
And for the record, that is a good thing, because historically, through most of human history, those who were vulnerable had no power. They were trampled on and destroyed and decimated. And now there's a resurgence, especially on the left, but even on the right. I mean, you see, people on the right being snowflakes all the time and saying like, "Oh my God, can you believe someone forced me to read a book about slavery?" Or whatever it is, whatever the dumb thing is, people on the right are complaining about. So, there's complaints on the left and the right, both focused on my vulnerability and my victimization. And that leads to a lot of performative victimization because people see, oh my gosh, I get power from doing this. So let me be a victim. And I don't even think it's intentional. I just think people like status, they like power. That's who we are as a species. And so they'll gravitate toward actions and identities that give them more influence. So the good thing about that, the way to take the silver lining on that is, to the extent, and again, sorry to keep plugging my blog, but I wrote a blog about this called The Law of Social Entropy. It's probably the most important thing I've ever written.
You said that too fast. People won't hear you. Say it again.
It's called The Law of Social Entropy.
Let's take a quick detour and look here at Wayne's article, The Law of Social Entropy. In the late 18th century, in an era of slavery and patriarchy, the philosopher Jeremy Bentham offered a defense of human equality. Many ridiculed this radical idea. A Cambridge philosopher, Thomas Taylor, sarcastically argued in 1792 that if women's equality were accepted, then the rights for animals would have to be accepted too. Wow.
And the idea behind this blog is that the fact that vulnerability has become a source of power, over the long term, inevitably, that will extend to the most vulnerable classes in our society. That there is a long-term trend towards equality, towards protecting the most vulnerable. And has it been hijacked in many cases? Yes. There's a fragility among young people. The number of kind of young, and again, not to be too identity politics, but it's astonishing the number of young white men who are on social media claiming victimhood status of some sort. It's like, it's mind-blowing. And to be fair, I'm sure a lot of them are victims in certain ways, and we should support them and include them and make sure their voices are heard. But at the end of the day, a white man who's president of some university or investment bank, like Bill Ackman, Bill Ackman is this hedge fund owner who's been claiming victim status over the last few years on Twitter. Bill Ackman is a billionaire who has all the privileges in life. The animal on a factory farm, in contrast, has never even seen the sky.
Right, exactly. It's crazy.
Never even seen the sky.
I want to ask you about something or tell you about something. I don't know if you know, but one of the things that I have been sort of pioneering in the last few years on social media is this concept of vegan phobia. Let me just preface by saying that, I am totally aware, and I've said it for years, we're not the real victims. The animals are the victims. I said it and said it and said it until I became quite well known and I had my house attacked. I had people banging on my door in the middle of the night. I had people saying they were coming to try to steal my dog because my dog is eating vegan food, and they said that she's abused. I've had, all kinds of things happen to me. I had to put cameras all over my house. And then I thought, one day it dawned on me. I said, you know what? One day when we were literally, my husband and I, trying to figure out how to defend ourselves in our own house, like you can't even throw rock. You can't even defend yourself, because you're going to be told, let's say it's a bunch of teenagers that come in your house, you start throwing rocks at them, they're going to say that you hurt them. They were, we were just trying to ring the doorbell, bullshit you were, or whatever they would invent, right? So we literally one day had the hose going from the backyard all the way and coming through the house. And we were ready to, if they rang in the door in the middle of the night, we're going to spray them with water because we figured that's our only defense. That's when I thought to myself, we are victims of vegan phobia. And I thought, I have to tell Wayne this, because I think that in the court of law, because we use the terms racism and we use the terms homophobia, that I would like vegans around the world to start to embrace that concept and to use it in the court of law. Just like, I honestly think that you were a victim of vegan phobia. And if you could talk to your lawyer about that, research it, and just try to prove that this is exactly what's happening. I think you would agree that you were. Yeah.
Well, you're in good company, because one of the most distinguished legal scholars in the nation and in the world, Justin Marceau, has the same belief and believes that there are extremely powerful constitutional arguments that vegans are being targeted for their political beliefs. And if that is the case, whether your political belief is about religion, socialism, whatever it is, I mean, the government is not allowed to target you. And even if they're third parties targeting you because they're your political beliefs or identity, I mean, that's a problem for human society. He was interviewed as part of Vox's coverage of my conviction, and you can see
Okay.
some of the things he said in that article. But basically,
Okay.
during our trial, the prosecution, one of their primary tactics was essentially vegan phobia. They asked every single one of our witnesses, "Are you vegan? You know, do you wear leather?" Yeah. Here's what I'm going to push back. All right. So I'm not 100% in agreement with you and Justin. I think this is an important idea for certain narrow legal arguments. I think we should raise these arguments probably in court, because I think every class and every political belief system deserves protection. We have a First Amendment in the United States for a reason. But, and I also think that internally within the movement, we should acknowledge that there is this targeting that's happening. But with respect to our public-facing communications, when vegans and animal rights activists communicate with the rest of the world, I think it's very important for us to cultivate a culture of bravery and toughness. That when we go out in the world, we don't focus on ourselves. We focus on our ability to sacrifice and withstand all the hardships and hate and still rise above it. And in terms of victimization, it's crucial that we still center the animals. Because to the extent, and the reason is this, to the extent we make it about ourselves, we'll get caught up in the same political firestorms that you see in all the different political issues of today. You know, where, you know, in the Israeli-Palestine conflict, I see people on both sides saying, I am a victim because, you know, even in the United States, I blogged about this, that at Harvard University, one of the safest places in the world, people on both sides of the Israeli-Palestine debate are saying, I feel unsafe. And it's like, wait a minute. 7,000 miles away, there are people who are killing each other. I understand them feeling unsafe because they're literally dying. They're being bombed. They're being murdered. There's rape. There's all sorts of horrible things happening. But Harvard University, I mean, you guys are like literally the safest people in the world. There's no place in the world that's more elite and privileged and safe than Harvard University. And even the president of Harvard herself is saying, I am unsafe. And so it's very important for us not to get caught off in that same dialogue, because that is a black hole from which we will not escape.
Well, I need to think about this a lot more, because I think that when I saw what the judge was doing to you, like asking straight out questions like, do you wear leather? What did you eat today? Or whatever crap he was saying, like that is clearly something that should be addressed. He obviously was biased. And look, you could sort of, I'm sure, Wayne, and I know you touched on this in some of your articles, like you don't really know why he was biased against you, right? You're thinking, is it race? Is it the way I'm do I remind him of somebody that he didn't like in the past? Like clearly he had some bias against you, right? But you don't really have any proof that he was a racist, but you do have proof that he was vegan phobic by the type of questions that he asked. And that's why I think that this term, you know, just to push back again on you a little more, I think that this term is really worth looking at. And that if you can prove that a judge is vegan phobic because of the type of questions that he asked that are completely unfair, then you should be able to say, okay, new trial. Clearly this guy was, you know, the equivalent of racist, you know, the equivalent of.
Yeah, you should reach out to Justin Marceau about this, because he's got a lot of great ideas in this regard. And two other people who are, I'm sure, very sympathetic to this perspective. There's a New York Times columnist named Ezra Klein.
Hold on, I'm going to write it down. What's the name?
Yeah, his name's Ezra Klein, Ezraklein. Amazing guy, really, really smart. One of the most brilliant political thinkers of our age. And he's vegan. And a lot of people don't know this. And the reason they don't know this is because when he came out as vegan, he said it was the scariest podcast he's ever done. This is a guy who talks about wars. He talks about civil conflicts. He talks about oppression and police brutality and all sorts of controversial subjects. And he said the scariest subject I ever podcasted about is animals and veganism. That was his scariest moment. The other person is Cass Sunstein, who is my former mentor and literally the most cited legal scholar of our generation. He's a professor at Harvard Law School. When I was in law school, he was at the University of Chicago, but already a very distinguished professor. And he wrote a piece. I forget what publication it's in, but he wrote about how he was nominated for a high-level position in Obama's cabinet. He was the head of OIRA. So he's a very influential person in the world. He's buddy-buddy with President Barack Obama. And when he was being nominated for his position in the cabinet, the scariest thing that came up, and the thing that terrified him more than anything else, and this is someone who's taken brave positions on so many issues, gay rights, death penalty, so many political issues he's taken positions on. But the scariest single position he ever had to take was a position on animal rights. And he's blogged about it. He's written about this.
Right.
about how much he felt like he had to hide the fact that he cares about animals because otherwise
So
people would mock him.
Exactly. So look, I go live on TikTok where I have like over 900,000 followers, and I go live and
Which
I
is
talk about
900,000 more than me.
I talk to people about this all the time. I'm a bit of a shit disturber, but what I really believe is what I learned from Wayne years ago, that you gotta get out there. I was like in this little echo chamber on Facebook, and I was just like, wow, we're just spinning around with each other. Like the more dislikes I get on my posts, the more I'm happy, because I know that I am actually getting to the people that I need to get to. If you ever look at my YouTube channel, there is almost no support from, and it's just all bunch of people. But at least the way I see it is they're at least learning and they're getting their clicks. I say it takes 100 clicks to become vegan, like 100 light bulb moments. And one of the things that I do on TikTok is I use the gay flag, and I say, I use the song that Diana Ross, I'm coming out, I want the world to know. And I wave the flag, and
you're a really good singer.
I tell them that hey, I've got Spotify songs, 160 of them. I'm telling you, God. Yeah. So, but, yeah, so I hold the flag and I say, this is an anti-oppression flag. This is a flag that, first of all, I'm bisexual. I came out of the closet like ages ago, and it was absolutely nothing. It is much more difficult to come out as vegan in today's society. I'm not saying in Iran necessarily, but in anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Canada. I'm in Italy at the moment. Nobody cares. Right? I mean, it's just like, oh, you're gay? Okay, whatever. Let's go grab a pizza. Nobody cares. You tell somebody that you're
in the United States, in a lot of communities, it's cool.
Of course, it's totally cool.
If
You're embraced. They actually have trans story hour. I mean, it's just all kind. Everybody. It's not a big deal. So, but you come out as vegan, and you're immediately your very close family, your brothers, sisters, everyone is like, oh my God, now how can we celebrate Thanksgiving without a dead body on the table? What about Christmas? And it's everybody, coming out of the closet as a vegan is a very selfless act, because you're doing it for others. When you come out of the closet as a gay person, you're doing it. Yes, it is good. I always tell everybody you should definitely come out. It's nothing. I fought for the rights of people to marry back in the day, decades ago. But you're really doing it for yourself, because it's something you want people to know about you. But to me, you can't really compare the two. One is just so much more difficult. And so, that's
Can I
what
I think is an important historical point, though? So while the way that LGBTQ status got to the point where it's cool, and it is. I mean, I'm in San Francisco, where like,
of course,
there's pride flags on every little building. I mean, this is the gay capital of the world. I'm literally sitting in the middle of the gay capital of the world.
But hold on a second. It's not just the gay. It's not just that. It's all the other flags as well, right? They don't just have the gay flag. And that's what.
Here's the key point. LGBTQ status got to where it is today, not because people focused on homophobia and how oppressed they were. It got to where it is today because people were fucking brave and said, I don't give a shit. I am coming out anyways, and I'm proud. That's exactly what happened at Stonewall, right? In Stonewall, there was a riot on the streets of New York City, and those drag queens that fought the police in New York City, they were not going out there saying, oh, people are homophobic, it's so sad, and woe is me. They were like, no, I am loud and I'm proud, and you are not going to stop me from loving who I love. You will not stop me from rioting in the streets to stand for what I believe in, if that's what's necessary.
And you will not stop me from protecting these dogs who are in the cages. Just because I don't know their names, I still care about them.
There was an element of it that did focus on how awful it is and how discrimination is holding all of us back. And I had Evan Wilson join us for a meeting. He's a legendary gay rights lawyer. And one of the things that he said that really resonated with me is through every single hardship, even when we were losing, even when people are mocking us and throwing us in jail, and even when we were dying of a plague during the AIDS pandemic, we needed to keep a positive frame. We needed to have hope and confidence that we could create change. And we have to do the same. And my problem with vegan phobia, at least with respect to it's a dominant public message, I do think we have to understand that internally. Just like the gay rights movement, when they talk to each other and they got together at a bar or over dinner and cried with each other because one of their friends was in jail because someone died of AIDS, of course they should talk about the oppression they were facing. Yeah. But in their public messaging, it was all about strength and confidence and our ability to create change. You know, and I think that's the way vegans should be too. I'm not saying, and I'm also not saying there's beauty in diversity. There should be a diversity of messages in the movement. There should be people talking about vegan phobia, but the dominant framing of this movement should be a confident, strong, and optimistic message that's not focused on oppression and repression, but on our belief that the world can change, because it can and it will.
Yeah. Freedom and
that's
positivity.
my point.
Yeah. Right. And I agree with you. You know, this is why
the movement, I think that's really important. And this is one of the reasons I love the vegan pod idea. Even separating kind of the value in promoting ideas, whatever you do at that 3 minutes, just having a small micro network of people who are vegan who can just support you a little bit. Because we do go through shitty stuff, like the stuff you've gone. I mean, you've gone through way worse stuff than most people, you know. So I don't think most people have had people knocking on the door in the middle of the night. But every vegan has probably faced some mockery, some repression. And it's important to get support. But it's also important to respond to that in a positive and optimistic and confident way, in my view.
I totally agree with you. And that is why when I am on TikTok, I say, you know, let's dance, let's come out, let's be proud. What can we do today? You know, I talk about the animals, but I also, just because it's a younger audience sometimes, you know, not always, but, you know, what kind of vegetables did you eat today? And, you know, what kind of animals were you nice to today? And just always sort of trying to head towards that way and to get them to watch the important documentaries. Essentially, my whole main thing is to try to get them to watch Dominion or Earthlings, because once they've seen that, or sometimes in the middle of my lives, I'll say, go and watch Dairy is Scary. It's only 5 minutes, and come back and tell us what you did. And I'll read their names out loud. If they promise they're going to leave the live, I say, if you're going to leave the live, you promise to leave and come back. Okay. Oh, good job. You know, Wayne, you're going to leave. Great. See you in 5 minutes. And I just try to get them to leave the live.
That's awesome.
You know, so try to do stuff like that.
I just watched the introduction of Earthlings again for the first time in years. And that it's just amazing. I mean, Sean Monson did such an incredible thing with that documentary. And Crystal Forrest, I don't know if you ever met Chris, but Chris is just a legend. I mean, I love him so much. And like when I met him, I spent literally all night. We were just talking about investigations all night, because there's probably no one I've learned more from in a short amount of time, at least on investigations, than Crystal Forrest. Whatever happened to Aaron Janis anyways? So I remember Darius Scary and Aaron Janis, but I haven't heard about her in a long time. What's she up to?
To me, it's not the point of what she's doing. It's just, you know, to me, the fact that she made this 1 5-minute video, and she, you know, if she does nothing else again ever, she has made a huge impact for the animals. That her piece of work is something that, you know, people can go to. It's very condensed, and it makes you feel, and it ends with a positive note, like, hey, everybody can be vegan.
Aaron is effective because of her audience. You're effective because of your audience. I'm effective because the people working with me. But my main point about Aaron is, and this is a huge problem in the animal rights and in the vegan movement, too often we lose people who are incredibly skilled and have enormous amount of wisdom and experience, and cannot pass that all along to the next generation of activists. So I mean, one of my big things is, how do we keep people in this movement, you know? And one of the things is infighting. There's a lot of fighting in the movement that leads people to burn out.
I totally agree with you. And one of the things that we need to do is have pods, because when it's like these little micro groups, you have a group of 4 or 5 people, but every single day you show up for them. There's no excuse. But if you don't show up, then somebody knows something's really wrong. Like, hey, are you okay? Oh, I can't get out of bed. I'm crying. I saw this thing or whatever, you know, but you support each other. But sometimes it's really boring ways. It's literally, I tell people that in pods, what's really helpful is just to write why you're vegan and just copy and paste that. It's the same story. It's nothing. You literally take your mouse, you go, I'm vegan because of this, and I became vegan because I saw this documentary, and you post it in people's YouTube videos. And people see that you showed up. Like your friend Jeremy, you know, I went to a video that he did, and I posted my little report card, you know, good job, you get 100%, A+, and it made his day, you know. But for me, it was nothing. It's like just copy paste. I saw some good work. Let's praise the good work.
Have you heard of the acronym WUNC?
No.
WUNC. So
how do you spell it?
I blogged about this. WUNC. I think I've made this argument before. I think. And I say this cautiously, because I don't want people to read into this the wrong way. But I think the animal rights movement and all movements need to be less woke and more woke. And that's not because I don't think we shouldn't be woke. I think there's a lot of good things about being woke. You know, obviously we should all be awakened to the various forms of repression that exist in the world. But if we're actually trying to be effective and not just perform our social justice ideals, it's more important to be wonk than woke. And wonk is an acronym invented by a political scientist named Charles Tilley, and it stands for, and it's basically an acronym. He went and studied all these movements that succeeded over 100 years, and he tried to identify what are the variables that made them succeed. And he came up with this acronym in, I think, the 1980s, WNC, and it stands for worthy, unified, numerous, and committed. Yeah.
Okay.
Unified is important. You cannot have a successful movement unless it's unified. It is one of the 4 key ingredients of social change. And, you know, the animal rights movement historically has been terribly, not just unified, but it's been cannibalistic. I mean, we eat our own alive, and it's terrible.
I saw what they were trying to do to you, and it was breaking my heart. And I know that I've had similar things happen to me too. And, you know, later on, I'd like to have some more conversations with you, you know, just to spin off this about strategy and what we should really be doing, because for sure, we really want to make sure that we're not making it worse. Like sometimes I always wonder, you know, I'm trying my best to follow science and research and doing the right thing, but it's possible that I need to just be veering a certain way a little bit more, and I might not realize it, you know, and that's why we need to surround ourselves with people who, and I know you take advice, you get advice from people, and that's great, and you don't always follow it, and that's okay, but we have to be really willing to take, you know, constructive criticism. And that's one thing that I know a lot of people are not really good at. And it's too bad because they take it personally, and then they don't talk to you and they block you or whatever. And
the good thing for me is I'm an idiot. So I get lots of criticism, and I needed to learn. And I mean that literally, like I'm an idiot. And I've been an idiot my entire life. So I had to learn from an early age. My mom was the first person to tell me, you know, I love you, son, but you're kind of an idiot. And I was like, huh, interesting. And so I had to learn from an early age. I needed to take criticism, because when you're an idiot, if you don't take criticism, you'll fall off a cliff, or you'll eat some poisonous substance, or you'll poop on yourself and do all sorts of embarrassing things that ruin your life and the lives of the people around you. So, but I agree with you 100%. You know, even for the non-idiots in the world, you got to be able to take criticism.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And well, listen, it was great talking to you. I know you have to catch a plane. But is there any parting words or call to action that you would like to leave before we end today?
Join us on March 18th. You know, that's the first day of our trial. We're going to amplify this as much as possible. There are already huge number of.
Hold on. So you say join. When you say join us, remember people are everywhere. I'm in Italy. Like, so when you say join, give us a link.
All you have to do is post on social media with the hashtag Beagle Betrayal and Right to Rescue. One or both. I mean, Beagle Betrayal is going to be the main hashtag because we're betraying these poor beagles. But get on social media, post about the trial, and ask the government, not just, frankly, the government in Wisconsin, but around the world, to prosecute animal cruelty and not animal rescuers. Around the world, it's not just us. Other people rescuing animals are being persecuted. We are doing the job the government should be doing. The government should be helping these animals. And the only way for us to convince these governments, these powerful institutions, to start helping animals instead of targeting the people who help them, is for all of us to use our voices. So on March 18th, you've got a lot of extremely influential people, and you can be one of them. And I don't mean you, I mean your audience. I already know you're going to help us out because you're awesome. But everyone else can be as awesome as you by just posting somewhere on social media, making a phone call on that day with the hashtag Beagle Betrayal and saying, we need to stop betraying these animals. We should rescue them. That's simple.
Right. Okay. So the 18th of March, and you have your blog called Simple Heart.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is follow the trial at simpleheart.org. I'll be blogging about the trial throughout. And if I'm in jail, you'll probably get letters from me in jail. Only if you subscribe to our blog, though. Otherwise, you'll never hear about my wild stories. And I've already had some wild stories in jail. You're going to hear some more wild ones if I get incarcerated after this trial in Wisconsin. But knock on wood, that does not happen. We'll see. I think we've got a good shot at winning this. And especially if we get a lot of public support, if we can shape the political narrative around this case, and make sure these powerful people in the Wisconsin legal system don't try to take away my rights, I think we've got a good shot.
So this is like a jury of 12 people?
This is incredibly embarrassing because I am representing myself and I am an attorney, and I don't know how big the jury is. But I know it's a jury trial. I should know how big the jury is.
But isn't it always? It's not always. It's okay. I for some reason I thought it was always 12. I don't know. But okay, it's a jury. It's a jury. Okay. And so when you say, I'm just curious, when you say like you the whole, public opinion, like they've already picked the jurors, right?
No, the jurors are picked on the first day of the trial.
Okay. So what you're saying is, even leading up to that, the best thing that we can do is let people know. So if it happens to be that some of these, like if a juror just happens to be picked and they've seen this interview, like they'll hopefully already be like, okay, these people are good meaning people and they're making some good points.
So you're trying to get me in a lot of trouble right now. I'm just kidding, because that's actually jury tampering. That's illegal. No, it actually is illegal. If you know someone is a juror, you're not supposed to influence them, because they're supposed to make a decision just based on the evidence they receive in court. But
of course,
are there broader cultural currents that influence people?
Yeah,
absolutely there are. And I'll give you an example. Before Black Lives Matter started protesting what happens to Black people on the streets of cities like Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco, juries routinely would acquit officers over and over again. There was no one who ever was held accountable for the torture and murder of Black people and other people being targeted by police brutality. And it wasn't until there were protests around the country that juries started realizing, wait, this is a problem. I've read about this in the news, and we can't just let another police officer get away with murder. And that's why Derek Chauvin is in jail. And I'm not saying I agree with that particular perspective, because I have a pretty unique perspective on jail. I don't think there's anyone who's actually bad. I don't think anyone deserves to be in a cage, human or non-human. And that's a controversial position. Most people probably think prisons should exist, but I do think it's a good thing.
I want to talk to you about that. That's another conversation. That's a really interesting topic.
In that spirit, one of the reasons I'm not on social media is because I have court cases across the country, and I need to fly to North Carolina, or the court's going to throw me in jail, because I have a probation hearing and I will find out what conditions they impose on me. And this is a totally separate story. But it was great to talk to you. I have to go fly. And if there's one thing I agree with you on, it's you got to get out there. And I'll leave you with 10 words that I've left a lot of people with over the years that I think pretty much capture everything that you need to know about social change. And they're these words: find your voice, find some friends, and fight like hell.
Ooh, that deserves a song. Find your voice, find some friends, fight like hell. Save the animals, save them now. Find your voice, find some friends, fight like hell. Save the animals now.
You do those 10 words, we'll change the world. Okay? All right, I gotta go, Katie.
Lovely chatting with you.
Let's follow that vegan teacher on YouTube right now. Let's